Hello everyone, how's it going? Back with my David Bowie collection, and this time we are at number 14, which is Hours from 1999. It's LP CD there and cassette format there. Yeah, released the fall of 1999, October 1999, produced by Reeves Corbells and David Bowie. And this album itself, the songs on this particular album were actually first released on a video game which Bowie had done called Omicron, the Nomad Soul, which features not all the songs. I believe there's 3 songs written primarily for the album. A lot of instrumental material from the game also was written by Reeves Corbells. About 3 hours worth of instrumental material was on the game as well. Yeah, an album I'm actually very fond of. Now, the thing about this album is it's not. It was never really that popular. I think it even failed to hit the top 40 in the States. It wasn't a very kind of a successful album for Bowie. It wasn't commercially successful, I should say. But I think a lot of the songs on this album are actually quite good. It was recorded in Manhattan, I think at the Looking Glass Studios in Manhattan. Yeah, but I think a lot of the material, I think a lot of the songs on this album are actually quite strong, to be honest with you. Now, it wasn't, as I said, a huge success for him. But yeah, let's take a look at some of the songs. Thursday's Child, which I think is an absolute cracker of a song I'm very fond of. It's actually one of my favourite songs by David Bowie. I just think it's so well written and it's so mellow. It's one of those pieces, just a beautiful piece that flows. The next song, Something in the Air, which is kind of a very kind of a straightforward song as well. It's just beautifully written, well sung. Survive is beautiful, great guitar playing. If I'm Dreaming My Life Away, another great song. 7, which is another fantastic song, which was remixed, also remixed by Beck as well. What's Really Happening, another fantastic song. Pretty Things Are Going to Hell, which is probably the more aggressive song on the song, the more rocky boppy type song. New Angel of Promise, another fantastic song. Brilliant Adventure, which will remind you from his Brian Eno kind of stage. It's an instrumental piece. And The Dreamers, which closes the album. The Dreamers was actually, I think he was going to actually call this particular album The Dreamers. But yeah, I think it's a very good album, to be honest with you. The first song from A Thirsty Child, I remember when I heard that first, I absolutely fell in love with it straight away. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it was such a far cry away from its predecessor, Earthling, which was, of course, his drum and bass album, as we discussed. But this was so different. Yeah, now the thing about this album is Reeves Corbells, who he had been working with course prior on its albums beforehand, including Earthling and Outside and the Tin Machine project, of course. But the thing about this was Reeves Corbells not so much fell out with Bowie during this album. He kind of, Bowie's kind of artistic approach was a lot different now from what Reeves wanted for this album. Reeves wanted this album to be more aggressive and more kind of, and even though he did produce it, of course, with Bowie, but he felt that Bowie was going in a direction that he wasn't comfortable with himself, so he kind of said, listen, this is not. And then there was tracks that were meant to be on this album that Reeves had a lot of input in, that David Bowie wouldn't include on this particular album. Now, they did feature on other B-sides so far. I think songs like 1917 and We All Go Through were songs that we loved, but Bowie tied them back and kind of brought more bass in and mellowed the whole thing down. And I think Reeves felt, this is not creative enough for me. So because looking at the album, it is a very basic album, and when I say basic, it's kind of Bowie. It really is singing on this album. It kind of has a more kind of a personal feel to Bowie, this album. It's very kind of Bowie really knew what he wanted to do with this album, and he said he kind of drew the line on what he'd been doing prior with Earthling, with the drum and bass, and with the projects, of course, with Eno, with Outside, and the kind of even kind of bringing in characters so forth. He wanted to shake all that off on this album, even though, of course, the video game had characters. Reeves himself was in it, as was Gaylan Dorsey, and of course his wifey Man were featured in the game as well. And the thing about this album, something Bowie never done before, was to he actually on his on Bowie Net, there was a competition where you could write the lyrics to a particular instrumental piece, which was the New Angels of, was it New Angels of, no, it's what's really happening. Excuse me, it wasn't New Angels of Promise. What's really happening, and you could go into the studio and whoever won it with the lyrics go into the studio, and there was actually see Bowie doing it. I think it was in Philip Glass studio, somewhere like that. I think it was recorded, and that was streamed live as well. And things were very different, you know, and Reeves Corbels felt very uncomfortable with that. Plus to the fact that Bowie was kind of he was moving towards kind of not so much looking on his past, but he started to in a way reincarnate a lot of his old songs, because during the Hours promo tour, the small tour to promote this particular album, Bowie started doing older material that fans kind of liked. You know, songs like Driving Saturday were popping up, and Word on a Wing was popping up, Life on Mars was coming back, and Reeves felt like he was going back towards his past, because you've got to remember, when Reeves started working with Bowie, Bowie said he was never going to perform any of his old material again. So Reeves felt very uncomfortable with that, you know, and he felt Bowie was going into a direction that wasn't for him at all. Now, I talk about Reeves Corbels a lot because I always look at Reeves Corbels as his saviour in the 90s, because he kind of introduced Bowie, even though Bowie's so creative, he does his own thing, he's very stubborn in his own right, but Reeves Corbels kind of, in a way, he was a companion to him during his change and his more creativity during the 90s. But on this stage there was a pause, he kind of moved away from all that. So, but this album, I rate this album so high because I'm just so fond of the songs, and there's the only song that's really kind of very rocky, has a rocky kind of feel to it, aggressive feel, is the song Pretty Things Are Going to Hell, which is an absolute cracker of a song. The rest of the song, even though it has some beautiful guitar playing and some absolutely fabulous lyrics, they flow so well. They're all kind of ballady in a way. They're all kind of very, very mellow. It's very much a kind of, you'd have to really, it's not the type of album that you would get into Bowie in. But when I first heard this album, I said to myself, I remember saying, oh, this is getting back to basics. This is Bowie performing. This is Bowie just being happy in his own skin. And, you know, and at this point, when I heard the song Thursday's Child and the video, which was absolutely brilliant, as was Survive, of course, I kind of said to myself, he's going to start doing his old songs again. I kind of felt that he was moving into that kind of way, you know what I mean? He was more kind of, it's almost as if he kind of drew a line on that. He said, right, I've shook off that kind of mainstream thing. I've got this out of my system. I've done what I needed to do. I'm going to just do what I do best, and I'm going to perform, and I've got my songs are bloody good. Let's do them again. Let's go out on the road and let's, you know. And it was Bowie being Bowie, I always felt, and I really got back into him. I never fell out with Bowie. I always followed him all through my life since the early 80s. But this album, I really kind of really got back into him and started listening to his music again. And of course, as Bowie being Bowie, never fails to impress. But yeah, anyway, the album, this particular album, it didn't get a 1999 release, of course, because of the CD era, of course. It was released in, I don't know the exact time, but it was released in the 90s. But however, it did get a limited, in the 2000 and, I'm not sure when, 2010, 12, I'm not too sure when this got a re-release on music on vinyl. But it was released in 1999 on a limited edition picture disc, which is that lad there, which is beautiful. I've never actually played this, to be honest with you, this one. And it did get another release there about 4 years ago when Friday Music were re-releasing some of his 90s material. Ours did get another release then. There was no 7-inch singles or 12-inch vinyl singles released for this particular album. However, they did release a picture disc of Survive on limited format, on limited thing as well. And a box set was released of Hours as well, with bonus tracks, so forth, and the making of the Hours album as well. It's a nice piece there, a couple of discs in that. Thursday's Child got quite a few disc releases. There's kind of different mixes, so forth, and a lot of the B-sides that didn't appear on ours that appear in the Amarok game as well. We Shall Go to Town 1917. Songs like that are on them, and there was a great Torstey Child rock mix actually released as well, which I'm very fond of as well. Yeah. Survive also got which was the second single. Now none of these done well. Torstey Child I think didn't do too bad. I'm not too sure now of the chart position, but these got released as well on different kind of mixes, so forth as well, and some of them feature live material and things like that. And 7 also was remixed. That got different Beck remixes and other remixes too, and also live material as well. Yeah, so Hours, an album I'm very fond of, and I'm very comfortable, again, once again I say that, to have it as 40. And it's an album I do listen to a lot. One of my favourite songs from David Bowie actually is Torstey Child, as is Survive, and I love the song The Dreamers as well, and If I'm Dreaming My Life Away. They're very mellow songs, they're not kind of, but his voice is absolutely fantastic on it, and I just feel like he's singing from his heart as such, as Bowie always does, but he's really emphasising the songs really on this album, and it's a fantastic album. So number 14, Hours. Thanks for watching, and I should be back with 13.